From a news that affects everyone's perspective, legacy media nearly pushing us into World War III was perhaps the biggest news this week. It went from Russia's deadly attack on Poland to correction. We got that wrong, but it's not our fault. It was an anonymous source. If this example isn't the actual definition of dangerous misinformation, I don't know what is. But not eager to give up the narrative, the propaganda puppets made sure to label the missiles as Russian-made. And yes, it looks like the missiles did come from Ukraine, but it was just an unfortunate accident. Let's make sure we send Ukraine even more money.
Inspector General, look, in Afghanistan, we were spending about $50 billion a year. We're on course to spend about twice of that in Ukraine, and we had an Inspector General in Afghanistan. We absolutely need one here. We found all sorts of waste, fraud, and abuse from Inspector General John Sopko, so we need one here in the Ukraine immediately.
Now, that should have been the biggest news of the week, but MSM is still obsessed with Trump. Bringing you what's ignored, sensationalized, misleading, or just plain false. Here's your media malfeasance for the week. President Trump's tease of big news turned out to be...
And I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
We are shocked. What we're not shocked at all about is how the news covered it. It appeared CNN had the most reasonable headline, only to ruin that by a laughable bias fact check for an announcement. Really? NPR might be the worst offender with this run-on sentence headline. Breaking! Donald Trump, who tried to overthrow the results of the 2020 presidential election and inspired a deadly riot at the Capitol in a desperate attempt to keep himself in power, had filed to run for president again in 2024. Laughably long, full of qualifiers, and does the clearly biased, subjective phrase, desperate attempt to keep himself in power, seem like it should be funded by taxpayers at all? Well, it seems the backlash was enough for NPR to attempt to remove the evidence. The tweet is poof, gone. Meanwhile, the rationalization for the raid on Mar-a-Lago continues to fall apart. Becker News, The Washington Post quietly drops bombshell about FBI Trump Mar-a-Lago raid days after midterm election. The FBI's raid at the behest of the National Archives and Records Administration has not yielded the nuclear secrets that the Washington Post first reported. Add nuclear hoax to Russia hoax, PP tape hoax. This list of media mistakes concerning Trump is getting hard to keep up with. Billionaire activist George Soros is funding a group urging secretaries of state and other elections officials to ban Trump from running for president in 2024, according to WND. How is taking people's right away to vote for whom they wish, limiting choices, not a threat to democracy?
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 MSM feeding the flames of a supposed feud between DeSantis and Trump hides what they can't talk about: any viable Democrat candidate for 2024. Either way, it's in the regime's best interest we look ahead rather than what's going on right now. We now know nearly half of Maricopa election centers had printer and tabulator malfunctions on election day.
One of the letters that our attorney sent yesterday is something really simple that we'd like to know. Why is it that we start early voting on October 12th? And why did 0% of the voting centers encounter tabulation problems during early voting when we know the Democrats were all heavily voting? And why did that number then jump up to 48% of voting centers encounter tabulation problems on election day when voters voted for Carrie Lake 3-1?
Counting is still going on as MSNBC claims Maricopa is the best at the process. Andrea Mitchell can barely stutter out this obviously false assertion.
Maricopa County had some of the best vote counting processes because of past problems.
Yeah, Andrea, they have a whole lot of practice. And
they've had a lot of practice, all right. We already know candidate Hobbs would not recuse herself from overseeing an election she was in. Now we know Maricopa County's top election official runs a PAC that opposes candidates like Lake. And Republicans continue to release evidence of voter suppression. Why do Democrats only seem to care about voter suppression until it doesn't suit them to?
No, they're not.
They can see it happening, and instead, sold-out propaganda machine AP labels those pointing it out as conspiracy theorists. Why not just, here's a novel idea, give both sides Associated Press? Who exactly are you associated with? Also, if election denier is such an awful insult, why are most people questioning, according to a Rasmussen poll? To wrap up, Elon Musk continues making moves at Twitter. But is he really being the free speech absolutist he had claimed to be? Despite the slow roll on bringing back some banned accounts, the powers that be still aren't too happy with him.
He's not free to do that. You cannot ignore what the federal government is requiring of your company.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What happened to the mantra? It's a private company. It can do what it wants. So was it ever private, or has it been federally controlled? You know the answer. I'm Christy Lee, and that's your Media Malfeasance for the week. To keep connected, join my community on Locals, ChristyLeeTV.locals.com.